the Grumman G-21A Goose, which is a floater plane mainly used for taking off and landing in water, but we're going to check it out taking off on a runway with the gear down and then landing on water and then a return flight back to the airport. So let's just take a look at where we're going to go. We're using real-time, real weather, and we are off of the east coast of Canada, and we're going to zoom into Nova Scotia and go to Halifax International Airport. And we're going to pick a ramp because I'm going to do a cold start. Show you how this thing works on a cold start. So we're going to have to take off on whatever runway they give us because it's real weather, so it'll depend on the sock and which way the wind's blowing. But I'm going to pick this ramp right here, ramp 63, so we can do a cold start and see how you start this aircraft up using the checklist that's provided by Microsoft Flight Sim. So if I click on that, I can set it as the departure. Now the reason why I'm picking this one out here, because if you're right up against a building, like this for example, there's no pushback for this plane. It doesn't seem to work, so you're going to be stuck there and running into the building trying to turn around or something. So this is a good spot. Pick something out like that if you want to do a cold start. Otherwise you're right on the runway, everything's done, you'd be ready to go. It wouldn't be an issue, but I want to do the cold start for this and go through the checklist with you. So now we're going to pick a aerodrome on the water. So we have Fall River Water Aerodrome, Charlie Foxtrot Romeo 3. And the interesting thing about this, I'm going to set that as our arrival, is if you pick one of these water aerodromes, and there are many of them that you can find at different locations, especially in the New York City area. If you pick one of those as your departure, you will actually be on the water when you take off. But if you click anywhere else, like on this lake where there's no aerodrome, you're going to be in the air, already flying in the air. You're not going to be able to take off from the water. So that's an important point to know if you're flying any of the floater planes in Microsoft Flight Sim. So you see it's about a 4-minute flight, 10 nautical miles. So it won't take us too long to do the actual flight. So I'm going to just leave it on visual flight rules because there is no Grumman in this plane. It's an older aircraft. First flew in 1937, I believe. And also there's no GPS. But, you know, today you could use your cell phone on Google Maps or your iPad. So real weather, real time. Navlog. We're going to fly at around 1,200 feet and then descend to the lake. So let's just click fly and we'll do our cold startup. So small airlines used this after World War II in California, Alaska, and the Caribbean. And the prototype first flew in May of 1937. So here we are at Halifax International Airport. So Microsoft does a great job rendering these airports and the aircraft as well. So this is pretty impressive, beautifully done. It's a very interesting twin prop. So nice thing is it's got retractable landing gear, so you can take off from a runway and then land on water and vice versa. And it's got a little tail wheel here and a lock for that, and also a parking brake. So we're ready to fly. So here we are inside the aircraft. And you can see it's got typical gauges that you would find. So it's got the airspeed gauge, it's got a vertical speed gauge, it's got turn coordinator, attitude indicator, altitude, compass, heading, gauge. So let's scroll out here. It's got a clock as well. Some of these things, when you go on them, there's yoke visibility highlighting, and same thing with here if you want to get that yoke out of the way. You just click on it. So there's gauges up here, and the throttles are up here. So let me just swing around, let you have a look inside here. So you can open this door, I believe, if we click on it. There we go. Get a little look back there. Unfortunately, unless you have an upgraded version or something, you're not going to get to be able to go back in there. I don't think. I can't click and go through there. These doors, I don't see any handles for them. There's the tail wheel lock. A rudder trim right there. I'm using a Logi 3D Extreme Pro Logitech joystick, and I'm using a keyboard and a mouse to fly the aircraft. So there's the joystick. I've got buttons programmed on the joystick for the flaps, the trim, inside, outside view, braking, and there's a lot of other buttons that are set for different aircraft, such as auto throttle and autopilot, etc. So here's the plane on the outside, beautifully rendered. So you can see why it's a good spot to park right here, because I can just turn and go out onto the runway. And it's got this set on VOR1. So we're not going to follow that. We're going to follow the GPS route on this map that I can bring up here. So I'll just back off a bit. So there's the GPS route that we can follow using that map. But I'm going to shut that off right now. We're going to go inside and start the plane up. So in order to do that, you can just use your checklist here, which will assist you. If you're really familiar with the plane, you can just do it all on your own. But obviously, if you're watching this, you're probably new to this aircraft, just like me. So one of the ways to do it would be just do preliminary cockpit preparation. And we'll just click on that until the highlight's in white, and then you can hit the little eye there, and it'll take you to that. There's the battery, and you just tick the item.
Battery on.
Let's do the generator. So you can tick the item, or you can actually turn it on manually yourself.
Generator on.
Volt button. Tick item.
Volt button. Check.
All right. Fuel valves. Let's just open them.
Fuel valves. Open.
Set the prop levers. So they'll do this for
Prop
you.
levers. Set.
Alrighty. Mixture levers. Let's see what happens here. Tick.
Mixture levers. Full.
Full. Okay. Throttle levers. They should be closed.
Throttle levers. Closed.
So make sure you have your throttle off on your I'm just going to go back and look at those again. There we go. I just did that using my joystick. Parking brake is down here. It's already off. You can just click on it to put it on and off with your mouse, or you can press Control Delete on your keyboard. Same thing. Okay, so we'll tick item.
Parking brake on.
Okay, so they want the parking brake on. So let's take a look at starting the engine. That's why they want the parking brake on, because it'll start to roll. Okay, so this is the right engine. Let's just tick that item.
Beacon light on.
All right. Magneto.
Right magneto. Both.
So a wobble fuel pump, let's do that.
Wobble fuel pump. Apply.
Okay, you can do that manually or do it yourself. Check the fuel pressure. Let's check that. And tick item.
Check fuel pressure. Check.
So the fuel pressure looks good. Engine start. Let's have a look at that. There it is right there. So I'm just going to tick item.
Engine start button. Push.
Yeah, you would just push on that with your mouse. Apply throttle.
Throttle. Apply.
Yeah, so you can see our right engine started now. And we're going to check the RPMs.
RPM and manifold pressure. Check.
Okay, there they are. Alright, so now we're going to do the left engine. So this only takes a second to do, not quite as long.
Left magneto. Both. Engine start button. Push.
There we go. Throttle apply.
Throttle. Apply.
Yeah, you can force finish those items if they get stuck. Let's check the RPMs.
RPM and manifold pressure. Check.
Okay. PTOT. Now it's not very cold out here today, so you don't really need that on. In cold weather you would turn that on, so as required. So we just tick item.
Pitot heat. As required.
So it's off. We're just going to leave it off. Okay, so we're ready to go now. And I'm going to go down and press Control 0 on my keyboard. See, the parking brake is on. So we're going to have to take that off and just click on that with my mouse. So now I'm going to go back up here. And I'm going to give it some throttle. And we're going to head down to our departure runway. You don't want to go too fast with this aircraft because it wobbles like crazy. It's a little hard to control. Especially on takeoff. It's difficult to fly this plane on a takeoff, so don't be discouraged if you're all over the runway trying to get it up to speed. You got to get it up to around 90 or 100 and it'll just lift off beautifully, but just getting it to go down that runway is a little bit of a challenge. So don't go too aggressive with your joystick, giving it yoke. So I'm just going to pull it down this runway here. Looks like they've got these markers in the way, but there'll be a little graphics error. I'm just trying to slow this thing down a bit so I'm not going too fast. So you can pick your own liveries for this thing when you're selecting the aircraft from the selection menu. And I just picked the flight simulator. I kind of like the colors of it. And you can put your own tail information on, flight number, etc. So once we get to the runway, it'll give us the clearance to take off. I've got air traffic control turned off because it's just can be an annoyance when you're trying to do a tutorial and you're trying to listen to what I'm saying. They're constantly interrupting. So we saw our altitude, I think, was around 2,000. Okay, so here we are. Just going to pull over here and stop. Okay, so now we got the clearance to go ahead. So I've got these little markers, blue chevrons, set up in my settings as an assistance, just so I can find the runways and the gates at all these different airports, which is very difficult to do if you're not familiar with the actual airport. You can see this hawk blowing there on the left, so we're taking off right into the wind today. That's why they brought us to this runway 23. Okay, so I'm just going to go inside. Now, I'm going to put the flaps down halfway here, and we are going to go inside, and I'm going to try and keep this thing on the center of the runway as best I can. Slowly increase your throttle. Okay, so try and keep it down the center of the runway. You can see what I mean. It really wanders. So if I can just not give it too much yoke, get the speed up, it'll take off. There you go. Pull back gently. We got our speed up to around 100. I'm going to bring up the flaps. I'm going to hit V on my keyboard. When I did that, I don't know if you noticed the altitude changed because I didn't have the correct barometric pressure set. So just hit V for grabble on your keyboard and you will get correct barometric pressure, which will affect your altitude. Now I'm going to bring up the landing gear. I can just press G on the keyboard, or you can go inside and actually do it. What's this now? Is this a landing gear? Yeah. Let's have a look outside. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, it's going up. It's a little comical. Okay, you didn't get to see that because we're inside. But anyway, if I had to press G on my keyboard, the same thing would happen. All right, now let's take a look at out the front here. And let's take a look at that map I told you about. So we get going in the right direction here. Okay, so we can see we got to turn to our right here. We get to Charlie Foxtrot Romeo 3. And I have the heads-up display on for exterior view, so that I can, when I'm on the outside, I can enjoy the scenery, the plane, how it looks, and I can also see everything that's happening inside on my gauges. So there's no angle of attack on the heads up, but you've got your airspeed, engine, both of them. You've got your fuel, your flaps, trim. Now I can set my trim using my joystick. I've got that programmed in. Microsoft will let you do that. It's really easy to do. So now to get to this lake. So we can do a landing. I don't want to get too high. But the plane's actually fairly easy to fly. Right now it's flying pretty level. It's going up a bit. So I'm just going to trim it down a bit using my joystick. Or you can use that trim button inside just to keep it from flying too high. And you can see we're heading right to the lake here. So it's nice to have this on. Otherwise, unless you want to calculate all your headings and your course manually, this is a very simple way to do it. So I'm going to have to get down now. And we'll try and find that lake. So once you start getting close like this, the best thing to do is just zoom in. Because you can be fooled as to where you actually are. So, beautiful view of the countryside in Nova Scotia. All the lakes, many, many lakes. So we're flying over Fall River now, and off to the left there you can see all of that. find our lake. Okay, I'm just going to zoom in here. Okay, this is the lake here, I guess. I think that's us here. Not sure. Yeah. So we're right over the lake we're going to land in, so just going to circle around, make sure there's nothing in the way, get my speed down. And get my altitude down especially. Oh, let's just see where we are here. There we are. So I'll just turn this map off now, and we'll just come over here and see if we can land on the lake. Put the flaps down, make sure your landing gear is up. So we're down to 500 feet. Geez, some beautiful homes here. Feet. There we go. Now there's no brakes on this thing, so it just has to die down on its own. And it's very difficult to steer it. So it's not too difficult to land. But extremely difficult to steer this plane. There's no rudder, so you can't really put a rudder down. I've got it turned right down as well. The throttle. So I'm going to bring up the flaps just for now. So we'll go around a little bit here and see what's around the bend. Because we're going to try and fly back. See, now this thing absolutely will not turn. It's really, really tough to get it to turn. Get it to turn around a little bit. I'm just using my joystick to try and turn it around. Just make sure you don't get going too quickly. pretty much on idle right now. I'm going to put the flaps down and try and take off now. Get our speed up. It's a pretty small lake. Part of the problem. There's a little freeze framing going on. I've heard that's a bit of a problem with this aircraft. Just going to bring up the flaps. So now we got to head back to Halifax International Airport to try and land this thing. So in order to do that, we need this map on again. Okay. That'll give me my bearings. So we're up to 1,000 feet now. See the airport up here. Those flashing lights for the runway. So I think we'll try and land where those flashing lights are. See how we manage. Just going to fly over the airport when we get there. Since we're not using air traffic control. So where those flashing lights are, I guess that's a direction into that runway, and I think that's maybe the runway we took off on, if I'm not mistaken. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put down the landing gear, press G so you can see it now come down. And I'm going to hit the flaps, and I'm going to slow this thing down. Just cut back on the throttle. There we go. Yeah, maybe we took off in the other direction, but we'll try landing this way and see. See if I can line this up. So once again, when we land this plane, it's going to wobble like crazy. So I'm just going to try and hold it steady on the runway and touch it down as gently as I can. I got the throttle turned right back. See, the exterior view doesn't look like we're lined up properly. Let's just try and bring it down as gently as we can. We've got lots of runway. Okay, now to hold it on the runway. Oh yeah, really tough. Okay. That's one of the problems with this one. So she wobbles like crazy. I didn't do a very good landing there, but give it a try yourself and you'll probably do better than that. So I'm going to bring up the flaps. But I'm not very familiar with this aircraft. And I think it's only about the second or third time I've tried to fly it. So I did a little better landing it the other time, but takeoff wasn't too bad. So now you can go to the gate if you want. Marking simply by bringing up air traffic control and asking them, but I don't have that function here because I haven't been using them. So I'm just going to pull off the runway and probably something will show up. Yeah, see if I can get down here and turn it off. Then you'll probably take me to a parking spot. Well, there we go again. So that engine on the right just pulled right over. Well, that's a problem you can have on takeoff. Now, we're on the grass anyway with these big tires, so we're okay. But that's just an example of how this thing will just pull to the right. I'm not sure if it's a programming issue or just the plane is so difficult to handle. Having a heck of a time. And it could be windy here today. Okay, well, that concludes the flight, so thank you very much for joining me. I hope you got a few pointers on how to fly this plane. Probably one of the more difficult, or if not the most difficult plane to fly in Microsoft Flight Sim when it comes to landing and taking off, because it's really on water not even an issue. It handles quite nicely, but on a runway with the tires down, landing gear, it's tough. Okay, so thank you very much. We're not going to bother going to a parking spot. We haven't got one assigned, so